On October 23, 1943, in the village of Krasnoye Selo in the Smolensk region, German Feldgendarmerie arrested 70-year-old Vasily Gromov. He was accused of murdering a German liaison officer, Oberleutnant Schultz, who was found dead with a bullet in his head 300 meters from the village. Everyone thought he was an ordinary old villager, barely able to walk with a cane, half-blind, and harmless. The Germans didn't know that before them stood a veteran of World War I and the Civil War, a legendary sniper of the Tsarist army, with over 100 confirmed kills to his credit, dating back to the trenches near Riga in 1917. They didn't know that in 1938, NKVD officers had tracked him down and recruited him as a reservist in case of war. They didn't know that the infirmity of old age was an act, and that behind it lurked a cold-blooded professional who methodically eliminated the Wehrmacht's command staff. By the time of his arrest, grandfather Vasily had killed 62 German soldiers, including 3 colonels, 12 officers, 5 snipers, and an entire punitive squad. His story remained classified until the 2000s. This is the tale of the most dangerous old man of the Third Reich. Vasily Andreevich Gromov was born in 1873 in the village of Alkovka in the Smolensk Governorate to a family of farmers. From childhood, he was a keen hunter. By the age of 15, he could shoot his father's rifle better than any grown man. At 18, he was drafted into the army, served in an infantry regiment, and proved himself an excellent marksman. When World War I began, Vasily was 41 years old, but he was sent to the front as a reservist. He fought in the trench battles of the 1918s near Riga, where sniper training was at an unprecedented peak. Vasily became a sniper by accident. In the spring of 1917, his company commander spotted him shooting down a German officer emerging from a trench at a range of 400 paces with a standard 3-line rifle. Vasily was briefly summoned to the regimental commander, given a rifle with a telescopic sight, and paired with an experienced observer as a sniper. Over the course of 6 months, Vasily killed 112 German and Austrian soldiers and officers. He was awarded the St. George Cross, 4th degree, and was nominated for the 3rd. But the revolution began, the army collapsed, and Vasily returned to his village. During the Civil War, Vasily fought on the Red side, serving as a sniper in a rifle regiment and participating in battles on the Southern Front against Denikin. Within 2 years, he added several dozen more White Guard kills to his tally. After the Civil War, he returned to his village, married, fathered 3 children, and worked as a gamekeeper and hunter. He lived a quiet life, rarely recalling the war. In the 1930s, he lived through collectivization, lost his wife to typhus, and raised his children. By the end of the 1930s, Vasily was already 65. He was considered an old man, though still strong and sharp-sighted. In the summer of 1938, NKVD officers arrived in the village. They were looking for veterans of the First World War and the Civil War with combat experience as snipers. The country was preparing for a major war and needed reservists who could be activated in the event of occupation. Vasily was found through the lists of those awarded the Cross of St. George. He was summoned to the district center for a talk. The conversation was conducted by a major in Moscow attire. He did not reveal his last name. He asked Vasily if he remembered how to shoot and whether he was ready to serve his country if necessary. Vasily replied that his hand still held a rifle, his eyes still saw, and he had not forgotten how to shoot. The major nodded and explained, "If war breaks out and the Germans capture the region, Vasily will have to remain in the village, pretend to be a frail old man, and wait for the signal. When the signal comes, he will have to do what he does best: shoot at the enemy. Weapons, ammunition, and communications equipment will be stashed in a cache beforehand. There will be no pay for the work, but if he survives, the state will not forget him after the war." Quote, Vasily agreed without hesitation. In 1939, Vasily was summoned to Smolensk for a short training camp. They tested him at the shooting range, gave him a Mosin rifle with a telescopic sight, and made him shoot at various distances. Vasily did not disappoint. At 66, he maintained his accuracy as well as the young men. The instructor, a former frontline soldier, grunted approvingly, "Grandpa shoots like a young man." Vasily was given a brief briefing on conspiracy. They explained how to operate the dead drop, how to transmit information through dead drops, and how to behave under occupation. A week later, he was sent home. Before leaving, the major gave him the coordinates of a dead drop in the forest near the village. A rifle, ammunition, dry rations, money, and encryption tables had already been placed there. On June 22, 1941, the war began. Vasily was 68 years old. 2 of his sons went to the front in the first days. The third died near Vyazma in October. Vasily, his 15-year-old granddaughter Katya, the daughter of his youngest son, and several old men and women remained in the village. The young people were either taken to the front or driven by the Germans to work in Germany. By August, the Smolensk region was occupied. The Germans entered the village in early September. Vasily began playing the role of a frail old man as soon as the Germans appeared. He walked with a cane, hunched over, shuffled his feet, feigned deafness and dullness, and spent entire days sitting on a bench near his house, basking in the sun and dozing. The Germans saw him as a typical village grandfather, harmless and pitiful. Several times, German soldiers stopped by his house, begging Katya for milk or eggs. Vasily sat on the bench, looking at them with bleary eyes, muttering something through his toothless mouth. The Germans laughed at him but left him alone. The old man was beneath their notice. In fact, Vasily was in excellent shape. His eyesight, though weakened by the years, was still capable of shooting at 400 meters. His hands were steady, his back straight, his legs strong. Every night, when his granddaughter fell asleep, Vasily left the house and went into the forest for 2 or 3 hours. He checked the cache, stretched, studied the terrain, and watched the Germans. During the day, he sat on a bench near the house, but in reality, he was conducting reconnaissance. He memorized which Germans went where, at what time, which routes, and studied the officers, their habits, their weaknesses. He was preparing. The cache was in a remote spot, in the forest 2 kilometers from the village, under the roots of an old pine tree. Buried there was a box containing a Mosin Nagant model 1891 30th rifle. With a PE telescopic sight, 300 rounds of ammunition, binoculars, a knife, dry rations, a canteen, a compass, encryption tables, and money. The rifle was in excellent condition, wrapped in oiled cloth. Vasily regularly checked the cache, cleaning the weapon, and ensuring it didn't harden. He was waiting for a signal. The signal came in March of 1942. Katya found a note written in pencil on a scrap of newspaper under a woodpile in the yard. The text was encrypted with a simple substitution cipher, which Vasily had been taught at training camp. After deciphering it, he read a short message: "Begin operations. Priority. Officers and signalers, proceed with caution." Quote, reports were sent monthly via bookmark. Vasily burned the note. The war had begun. Vasily selected his first target a week later. The village held a German garrison of about 40 men under the command of Oberleutnant Müller, a veteran of the Polish and French campaigns. Müller was an experienced officer who kept his soldiers in line and treated the local population harshly, but without excessive cruelty. He regularly toured the surrounding villages on a motorcycle, checking posts and inspecting garrisons. The routes were relatively predictable. Vasily studied Müller's travel schedule for 2 weeks. The officer rode every Wednesday and Saturday, usually in the morning along a dirt road through the forest. Vasily found a suitable place for an ambush, a small rise, 300 meters from the road, overgrown with bushes. From there, he had an excellent view of a straight stretch of road about 100 meters long. He dug a shallow trench, camouflaged it with branches and grass, and checked the field of fire. Everything was ready. On March 28, 1942, early in the morning, Vasily took up his position. He lay in the trench for 4 hours, motionless, patient. At 11 a.m., the sound of an engine was heard. A motorcycle with a sidecar was driving down the road. A soldier was driving, and Müller was in the sidecar. Vasily waited until the motorcycle entered the firing zone, aligned Müller's head with the crosshairs, held his breath, and smoothly pulled the trigger. A shot. The bullet pierced the lieutenant's temple. He collapsed into the sidecar. The motorcycle lost control and crashed into a tree. The soldier flew out, jumped up, and started firing his machine gun at random toward the forest. But Vasily was already leaving. He moved quickly. Despite his age, He hid his rifle in a designated hiding place along a predetermined route and returned to the village by a roundabout route. An hour later, he was already sitting on his bench near his house, stooped, decrepit, and harmless. By evening, the Germans learned of their commander's death. A group of Feldgendarmerie arrived in the village. Searches began. They checked several houses and interrogated the men. They didn't even touch Vasily. What kind of sniper was this old man? He could barely walk. The Germans shot 2 middle-aged men suspected of ties to the partisans and left. A curfew was imposed on the village from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Vasily sat on the bench and watched it all with the bleary eyes of an old man who doesn't care. This was his first kill in 20 years. Vasily expected to feel something. Excitement, fear, satisfaction, but he felt nothing. Muller was a target, a goal, an enemy. Shot, hit, retreat. Work. In 1917, near Riga, he killed 112 people and felt nothing. Now it was the same. The war had returned, and he was again doing what he knew how. Vasily chose his next target a month later. The new garrison commander, Hauptmann Werner Krause, was more cautious. He didn't travel alone. He moved with guards, changing routes. But he had a habit. Every morning, at precisely 8 a.m., he would leave the commandant's office to smoke on the porch. He would stand there for 5 to 7 minutes, smoking, looking out over the village. The commandant's office was located in the former collective farm administration building on the outskirts of the village, near the